Hi, this is Joy Robertson. As many of you know, I love food. I love finding new restaurants. I love trying new dishes. And most of all, I love talking to the many great restaurateurs and entrepreneurs we have here in the Ozarks and beyond. I love hearing their stories, and that's what this podcast is all about, learning more about them and their journey. So join me as we savor the Ozarks. I don't know if those of you listening right now can hear the train behind me. I'm on Commercial Street, and that's a very important part of this historic street, as is Lindbergh's Tavern. And I am sitting here with co-owners Ryan Dock and Eric Weiler. You guys took this over in 2009. February 2009. My goodness, this is a wonderful place. Who wants to start? Ryan, you're closest to me. I'll start with you. How did this come about?
Part of it was the right place at the right time. We'd always talked about it, something we talked about for a long time, and through a friend of a friend, a place became available, and the price was right, the timing was right, and a lot of luck and a lot of effort.
Did you guys, so how long had you known each other? Did you both grow up here?
Yeah, I moved here from Florida my senior year, and I met Ryan as my cousin's friend, and we became really good friends. So we've been best buds since high school. I'm not going to put any dates on that right now, but we've been friends for a long time.
We had connections through from growing up. Our grandparents knew each other. It turned out after some time, these other connections showed up, and it was one of those 6 degrees of Springfield type things. So.
It's funny how everything runs through Springfield, Missouri, doesn't it? It's weird. Yeah. I mean, it's just the strangest thing. You'll be anywhere in the world and you'll mention where you're from, and there's always a connection. It's strange. So did you both did you work together in a culinary setting? Did you both have a hospitality background, or just the desire to do this, or how did it come about?
Well, I was working at Steak and Ale one day, and
Steak and Ale, which now is Jim's Steakhouse.
And I turned the corner, and I was a busser, and Ryan was back there, and I was like, "What are you doing?" He goes, "I got a job here." He didn't tell me at school or anything, and so that's kind of where it all started. We were bussers, and then became servers, and I became a bartender, and then moved on from there. But it all kind of started back then.
Okay, so you worked that's so bizarre. And if I'm not mistaken, we're sitting right up front at a nice round table, the one you see when you walk in the door, just to the left. This came from Jim's Steakhouse?
It did, yeah. The table and chairs. When we opened, we didn't have furniture, and Jim had replaced the stuff at Jim's from Steak and Ale, and he was nice enough to give us the leftovers from Steak and Ale days. So taking a piece with you, and it's some of the best stuff, the most quality furniture we have, so it really stands the test of time.
Did you guys learn a lot from Jim? He's a great guy.
Yeah, I learned a lot of management skills from him and leadership. He was inspiring. Great guy to work with, really fun, but had a firm hand when he needed it. The guy that he replaced was not fun. In fact, one Halloween at Steak and Ale, this is a great story. Ryan walked in, and he had a manager's shirt and tie on and a bullet hole in his forehead. And so the general manager came in and goes, "What are you?" He's like, "I'm you."
You really? What did he say?
He just kind of laughed it off and went back to the office. I wasn't thinking clearly back then what that really said, but I didn't mean it like that. It was just Halloween, and so thanks, sir.
It was funny.
Yeah.
It was one of those things that you do on Halloween when you're 18 years old. Yeah. I get it. So when you think back to when you were in your teenage years and you're bussing tables back there and you're doing your thing, had it crossed your mind at that point in time, I might just like to own and operate my own restaurant? You're nodding, Ryan.
I think
nodding off? No, surely not.
I'm just not nodding off. No, I was just thinking. I don't think we had any thoughts of that then. Neither of us really cooked much back then or anything, or had. But we both grew up with it, with grandmas and that kind of thing. That was really important. But I don't think we really harnessed that till a few years later. I went to Columbia and worked in some restaurants up there in college and stuff. And Eric stayed here, and then we kind of our paths kind of came back together here. So,
whose idea was it? Like, did you find out about this together, or did one of you go to the other and go, dude, I want to talk to you. There's an opportunity. We need to take advantage.
I believe the previous owner of the building called Yankton, a friend of mine. He used to own the ballroom. He's the one who opened the Outland Ballroom that used to be open. And the guy was looking for tenants here, and he couldn't find any, so Yankton said, call Eric. So the guy called me, and I was like, Commercial Street is really apprehensive. It was 16 years ago, so if anybody remembers what Commercial Street was like back then, it was not a fun place. Nobody came down here. And I told the guy, I was like, you know what? Let me just come see the building. Let me see the room. And I walked in, and I was absolutely blown away by the bar. I was like, I can make this work. And then there was doors on the side, and they were laying concrete. And I remember asking, I was like, can we put a patio out here? He's like, yeah. Then the back room, which is now the kitchen, was a green room for bands. And I was like, can we put a kitchen back here? And he's like, yeah. And so then I went home, thought about it, called Ryan. I was like, I got a spot. It doesn't have a restaurant. We'll have to work towards it, but we can start here if we want to. And we decided to go for it.
So it was not a restaurant at the time. I don't remember. I've been here a lot longer than that. I don't remember what was here. There wasn't a whole lot on C Street. What was in here before? Do you know?
It was a bar before here. Yeah, and I think at the time Pizza House had just moved down here, in October, and we opened. We signed a lease in January, so basically about 3 months before us. And Big Mama's was here.
Right.
There were sheltered buildings right across the street, which are now office buildings, and they look nice, but it was. We talked and we're like, it's got to improve at some point. Maybe we can be a part of that. And so we just decided to go for it.
And my goodness, C Street is a great spot, don't you think? I absolutely love it up here.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, we were able to sort of get on the ground floor more or less, and there was a strategy for success developed, and the city was invested. So it seemed like, it was turning that corner, and, we were it was also something that we could afford, to get into, which isn't typical, being able to afford it, and a lot of help from a lot of friends and a lot of people wanting it to work, and we're able to pull it off, I guess, so far.
So far, so good. So let's talk a little bit about this building that we're sitting in right now. It's been around, let me see, I wrote some notes down. I did do a little homework. Around 1880, is that? Wow. There's ish. We don't know. I mean, there are a lot of stories about this place. What do you know about the history?
Well, I know the first owner was an ex-Confederate soldier, if that puts it into perspective. So it was like post-Civil War. There used to be a brothel here. There's bird shot from a shotgun over a disagreement over a tomato, supposedly, stuff like that. The women used to have to drink in the back. It was that old. And so there's a lot of stories that you pick up over the years, and you thumb through them and kind of guess which ones are true or not. But I think we'd been here about 5 years, and I was restoring the bar a little bit. Every once in a while put some wax on it, and I was like, there's the bird shot. And I had been in here for 5 years and never seen it. It's up near the top. But I was like, yeah, that's definitely what it is.
Oh, wow. Well, there's a certificate over on the wall, and I haven't read it in a while, but some authenticity to the building that we're in. Does that draw a lot of attention? The house of ill repute, as it were.
I don't know if it draws a lot of attention. It's kind of plain, I guess, to see. But yeah, we found on microfilm at the library, we'd heard that the arrest warrant for the madam that ran the brothel was there. And I want to say it's 1882 or 1878, the date on there. And her name was Belle Wilson, and it was she was running a body house, is what they called it back then. And everything, they didn't arrest a lot of women back then, apparently, because everything's typed out. And so it says to take his body into possession, and the judge had to cross that out, like her body into possession, things like that. So it's, pretty cool history. You think it was the frontier back then, it would have been like Kansas territory to the west, and the train brought everything here. So it was a one-stop shop. The railroad workers could cash their checks and spend them in the same place.
Okay, so they spent a lot of time in here when they got finished with work. I get it. Now, the bar itself. Eric, you said when you walked in and you saw that bar, you were like, oh, I could do something with this. Tell me what you know about the history of the bar itself. It's, 22 feet long, I believe?
Yeah. There's so many stories that I mean, we did some research a while back, went to the library and stuff, and there was only like one thing that I found. There was another gentleman who had a bar on College Street, and I think that's the bar that's in, where is that, Bank Bar? Billings. It's an older bar, yeah, and that bar used to be either on the square or on College Street. And in that article, the guy was friends with Wild Bill Hickok. And in that article, it talks about he had an affinity for mahogany. And he brought in a bar from somewhere, I think it was Chicago, and had it downtown. I think it was on the square. It's been a while since I looked at it. And if that's the case, that would have been the bar that Wild Bill Hickok went and set off after he got in the gunfight. There's no way to prove it, right? But the only evidence of a bar coming in at the same time as this one is then, and through that guy. I can't think of his name, but yeah, he owned 2 bars, and then that bar closed around 1905, and that's when this bar is supposedly arrived on Commercial Street. Some people say there's a wagon that they built train tracks to get it in here from, and all this stuff, but I truly believe there's something there.
What do you think? I mean, it's the bar back is quarter sawn oak, and it's a Brunswick. The company made it. It's I believe it's the Empire model, and there's a smaller version of it that Booch's bar in Columbia has the exact same bar, but a smaller version. It's all, hand carved, and then the top part of the front bar is the mahogany piece. And if you look down, you can see the rail, how it does that from here. That's just people's elbows going in the same spot for 150 years.
The bar stools were connected to the ground. The bar stools were connected to the ground, so they always sat in the same place. The pressure was always the same, so it affected the wood and made a wave indention all the way down.
If you're sitting where I'm sitting, you can literally see where people have leaned against. So you think it's possible that Wild Bill Hickok might have bellied up to that bar at one time and thrown a couple back after he shot the dude on the square?
I'd like to say probable, but yeah.
We're just going to say yes. We're going to say yes. It's better for business. Well, he sat right there. Look.
Prove us wrong.
Yeah.
Look closely, see if he might have carved his name in the wood somewhere. He seems like the type of guy who might have done that. All right, so when you came in here, were you a bar and a restaurant, or were you just a bar to begin with? And it says on your social media and on your webpage, elevated bar food. I could not agree more. How did you come up with your menu? Who was behind that? Both of you, or how did that work?
It's all been certainly a team effort for sure. We some recipes he kind of started and some I started, and we kind of met in the middle and figured them out together. But I think we had a pretty solid vision for what we wanted to do, at least a base, and then we sort of worked from there.
Was it did you start with kind of trying to figure out a custom, or rather a craft cocktail menu first, or the food came later, or did you kind of work on it all at once?
That whole craft cocktail craze, like, I guess it probably started around 2010 or something. Like, we figured out we were behind a little bit on that. Like, we were used to like the 70s and 80s, like everything pre-mixed, heavy sugars and stuff. So we had to relearn how to bartend. This is before we opened the kitchen. And so we started doing that. We started getting a lot of attention for our cocktails, getting awards and whatnot. And then the kitchen opened in 2015. So it's almost been 10 years since we had food. So we were open for 6 years doing bar, live music, and cocktails. And so then we had, a reputation for doing great work with cocktails. So we're like, okay, we've got to continue this with food. And we kind of sat down and thought about what works in here, what works on the street, whose toes do we not want to step on, what do we want our identity to be. And we looked at a lot of American food and like emphasis on Cajun and bar food and trying to elevate that. Even the cashew chicken poutine, we're like, how do we make it Springfield? What screams Springfield? Everybody cashew chicken. So Ryan had gone to Portland and came back and was like, everybody's eating poutine there. I was like, what's that? And this is before we opened our kitchen. We started talking about it, and they're like, cashew chicken, the sauce is basically gravy. So that was one of the first things we came up with. We were kind of known for, an identity of Springfield, and we put our own spin on it.
Oh, we do gravy here in the Ozarks for sure. Sure. What was your must-have, though, at the beginning? I would imagine that a good burger was kind of like we got to nail that part of it. Which one of you, don't you cook in some duck fat? I know you're big on the duck fat, and boy, does that bring a lot of flavor. Is that something you came up with, Ryan?
Well, it was, it was something I had thought about before and heard about, and we can't afford to fill our fryer with duck fat and do our fries in it, but we can afford something like that. And I guess with the smash burger, the thinking is, it's typically you want a juicy burger. But the smash burger, and you get the lacing and the flavor, but just a way to like have a little extra fat there. It won't shrink up as much, and get a little, just that element.
And you've got a variation of burgers too. I mean, you can get just a good standard burger, but there's some crazy good variations. I bet you've had fun with that.
Yeah, our original menu, we did an exotic meat every month. And so we forced ourselves, much like we do with our brunch, we have to like keep moving and getting more creative over time. We eventually stopped doing that, but we'd figure out a protein. We did alligator, bison, all these different things. And through that, some of those were so popular, people would ask for them back. After we stopped doing it, we sat down like, what ones really worked? And so, like the Dubliner, the corned beef burger, and the Diablo, like the chorizo patty, those were from that era when we were doing a burger every month and changing it up. It ended up paying out for us pretty nice because it adds a lot of creativity to a burger menu.
It does. Another thing that I love that you have on your menu, fried green tomatoes. Who came up with the fried green? And then, like all year long, you could get the fried green tomatoes with that relish. Whose idea was that? Brian?
Well, I mean, we both kind of, we both had grandma. Yeah, we both grew up with grandmas that cooked, in the old-fashioned way. And, so I think we leaned towards that southern home cooking thing anyway. And my grandma had always made, at the end of the summer, green tomato pickle relish, which is green tomatoes and onions, and cook that stuff down and then can it. And I just thought if we do, fried green tomatoes with fried onions and then pair it with that, it's just green tomato and onion and green tomato and onion. And I don't really see it on anyone's menu, before and around here. So we just thought that's a good way to, to corner a market. We also offer it on the turkey burger that we do, and it was a standard on that, and we decided to make it an option. And so we're looking for ways to use things more than in just one way.
Well, it's amazing, and it's on your appetizer menu, but I can say for the record, you can make a meal out of that. It is fabulous, but it's perfect for sharing. It's really good stuff. You are truly a scratch kitchen, correct?
Yeah. We make about everything we can back there. We have a really small kitchen, but all the sauces we put our own identity on, and a lot of trial and error. And over the years, you're like, okay, this is it. Let's move forward with this. But all our sauces, a lot of times we're mixing meat and seasoning it for the burgers, a lot of different stuff like that. But everything's made in house except for the buns and the bread, which we could never do. When we first opened, before we had so much more traffic, we were making our own fries, and actually pickling our own corned beef and stuff. We just slowly ran out of room. As we expanded, and there's only so much we can do with this building.
I've seen your kitchen, and it is a small kitchen. You work miracles in a small space, I will say. Tell me about your ketchup. You have a great ketchup.
That was Ryan had some ideas. Like we knew we wanted to use candy ginger, and I was like, rosemary goes so good with potatoes, and that's kind of where we started. And we started going back and forth and trying different recipes till we found a really good solid base recipe of ketchup. Okay, this tastes like ketchup, because ketchup can be really weird to make. It tastes like marinara or something Italian. We ended up with that, and we slowly added in that, and then we had Table Rock beer, and so.
The Table Rock Red Ale from White River was, and we wanted to. Originally, we were making a vinegar from their beer, and then making the ketchup from that, and it just wasn't sustainable, or in the long run, it wasn't doable. So we just started using the beer in it, and that was the thing, to use local stuff to highlight local things. And ketchup, believe it or not, can be quite divisive. It's a pretty polarizing topic. And we did look at sort of like some home recipes for like a Heinz ketchup, look at that, and so look at different things, and then what you like and what you don't like, and put it together. And I mean, we must have made 50 test batches of ketchup or more, and had people try them before we finally settled. So.
Well, it's so good that sometimes it's the tipping point for me, because I just want something to dip in some ketchup. Like I'll say, somebody's got to get at least some fries or something here, because I want the ketchup. It's that good. What about the pork rinds? Because my hat's off to you for the pork rinds. I love me some pork rinds, and you guys really trick out pork rinds. Whose idea was that?
I don't remember. I don't.
It stemmed from the boiled peanuts, and we wanted to do something. We used to do boiled peanuts when we opened, and it was just no one really. It just didn't catch on around here, and so we were still looking for that southern thing, I think, and like. That was something. It's quick and doable, and we just didn't see anybody else really doing them on the menu, so we thought it'd be a good chance for us. But just another southern thing, I think. Yeah.
Talk about the popularity of your brunch, because brunch is a very big deal here. And by the way, it opens at noon. So for those of you who are ready for brunch, you get to sleep in a little longer and then make your way to C Street at noon. So are you, some people who are breakfast fans are really passionate breakfast food people. Are you guys breakfast food people, or did you just decide you wanted to give a brunch a go?
I think the opportunity kind of presented to us, like, I don't think there were very many people doing brunch when we first started. And, we were bartending still late nights here, and then, get up and, just want a greasy plate of food. And so it started off as kind of that, then it developed into something a little more gourmet, a little more sophisticated. But at first we were just doing kind of a greasy plate, then we slowly developed a menu, then we started I think for the first couple years we were doing a chef's choice French toast. So we ran out of every possibility of French toast. And so I think Ryan was like, why don't we just do a special? And I'm like, okay. So then we started doing specials, and we tried to always reinvent ourselves with that. I try not to repeat ourselves unless it's something it's people want that again, bring it back a little bit. Yeah, it's seasonal stuff. And then, on New Year's Day this year, we're going to open up at noon and do one for New Year's Day, which we haven't done before, so we're kind of excited about that. But yeah, every Sunday, we kind of create a buzz with our social media accounts, and it creates that buzz, and we'll have a line of people waiting to get in at noon, and then they all rush in here, and it's a fun shift. I'm using quotation fingers.
Yeah,
it can be difficult, but it's also very exciting.
Who takes the pictures who takes your photographs? Because I don't think it's an exaggeration to call it food porn. I'm serious. You look at those pictures and you're like, I got to have that. I got to have it. You do that, Ryan?
We both take pictures, but I think Eric takes better pictures.
Really? So you're in charge of the photography of the special?
We both every week, one of us has Sunday off. So the other person does the specials. So we trade that, and we both take pictures every week of our specials, and the other guy handles it. And so we don't have to work every Sunday, which is great. But yeah.
In the beginning, when we were just a bar, we were closed on Sunday because we didn't want a Sunday liquor license to pay for, and we were open on Monday, but we wanted to give a day off. And when we opened and we're doing food, it made more sense to get a Sunday license and then do that, take Monday off.
Okay.
So I think that was part of the thinking as well.
Eric, I remember coming in here and shot a little video with you for Ozarks Live, and it was a French toast, wasn't it? With the cheese. Oh, that's right. It was the grilled cheese with a cream cheese.
Yeah, it was a cheesecake grilled cheese. So it had I think a whipped cream cheese with berries. It was sweet, savory, which I like to do quite a bit. But yeah, that's what it was. It was. Okay. I remember it was really early. You got here really early. I was like, okay, let's do this, get a picture taken. But yeah, that was one of the specials we did. The other thing with those brunch specials, kind of like we were talking about earlier with the burgers, how those are specials, and then those burgers end up becoming our menu. Some of our brunch items have done that, like the lobster grilled cheese, which you had. That was a special that ended up, it sold so well, we'd bring it back. And also the Queen City dip was a brunch special. Some of those that we find that it's a good way to... Jeff Underwood, yeah, that was one of our friends from high school. Worked for us for a little while. He was way overqualified. But, yeah, he was great to have here. But he came up with that. Me and Ryan went on. We went on a ski trip.
Okay.
And we're like, can you do this? He's like, yeah, absolutely. And so it might have been one of the bigger lines in front of the building, and it was his first running the ship by himself with staff. But he did a great job. But yeah, that's how the Queen City dip started. But a lot of those specials we come up with, you look at the reaction, you're like, you've got to add this to the menu at some point. You know?
I remember that I messaged you all one time when I saw a picture of the Queen City dip, and I said, how did I miss this on a Sunday? When are you going to do it again? And I eventually came in and was able to get it. It's fantastic. Fantastic. I wrote down a couple of your specials. You do a lobster Benedict and a surf and turf Benedict. So you're big on the Benedicts, which I really love. Or those must be hugely popular.
Yeah, I guess it's kind of a staple, and we end up making a lot of hollandaise-based sauces throughout times anyway, I think. And it started with the lobster Benedict, and we just kind of did a small rewrite and added the surf and turf Benedict. Again, a lot of times trying to figure out ways to use things in more than one way.
Is there anything you've done here that really just didn't work, that didn't fly? I mean, I'm sure there are things that just that people love and they had it, but they weren't clamoring. I mean, maybe it's not the Springfield taste or something.
Yeah, I think there was a while where I was really engrossed in certain chefs and studying, and I started out kicking my coverage a little bit. I think I did a chicken Ballantine with homemade sweet potato gnocchi and plated it, and no one showed up. And it was one of I looked back and I was like, wow, that was a really cool dish, but it didn't translate as well. So one thing I think the longer you do this in this situation is you learn how to develop, and you've got to appeal to people and not scare them with fancy words and stuff like that. I did a couple weeks ago, I did uovo de ravioli, which is a ravioli that has piped ricotta cheese that you put an egg yolk in it, then you build the ravioli on that. I'd done it years ago, and it didn't have a great response, but I was like, if I fry this, people will eat it.
Oh, yeah.
And so I did a toasted ravioli Benedict with it. But if I just left it alone and they saw those words, they probably wouldn't come in. But the title said toasted ravioli Benedict.
And the chicken thing with the gnocchi, what was that called? A chicken what?
A Ballantine. It's you roll it up and take a breast and you stuff it, then you cut medallions out. It's really good plating. It's a lot of work, but it's okay, I don't have to do this, but you've got to be able to relate to your guests. You got to kind of lead them in and then let them try stuff, and they're familiar with it, and you're hopefully, building with that, and you can keep increasing what you're doing, what you want to do.
But a sweet potato gnocchi, yeah. What were you going to say?
It kind of has to fit their vision of what Lindbergh's is a little bit. It's got to fit within their frame of reference to what we do. If it's things they've never heard of, maybe they're going to shy away from it. And people like what they're comfortable with, and we specialize in comfort foods.
I was going to ask you, what do you think Lindbergh's is?
I think it's down home, solid, from scratch. I like things my grandma would eat and would make.
I think Grandma would be beyond amazed at some of the, because this is not at all the typical menu. It's just so very good. What do you think it is? What do you think people think it is?
Personally, I think me and Ryan have always kind of been a little rebellious and like to play with their food, and it's how can we make this different, and you don't want to do everything everybody else is doing. You want to showcase what you can do and your creativity. And I think people understand. I think a lot of people would say it's a burger restaurant that does amazing other stuff, but fundamentally we're a bar, we're a tavern. We sell great cocktails, we got local beer, good draft selection, but burgers and fries are what we're known for, but we try and step that up with our own ketchup and little things that we do, like homemade mayonnaise, stuff like that.
Yeah. Speaking of bar, talk about your cocktail program here. You make some of your own mixers and what have you. I remember the day I was here, you had a shrub or a mixer or something back there. That's going back a ways, but do you still do that sort of thing?
Not as much. We're not as much involved up here, so we've kind of streamlined that a little bit. We still have our Bloody Mary vodka that is infused with herbs and peppers and garlic and stuff like that. We have a salt. We did so many drinks before. Like I said before, we're on those specials. We did seasonal cocktail menus, so you start to learn what works, what doesn't work. We'll still do specials and stuff, but we found out what works, and we stick with that. Like the Belle Wilson, the Madam. Yeah. We have a cocktail. It's lime juice, gin. It's got a spritz of rose water that smells like perfume. So when you smell it, it smells like cheap perfume. And the cocktail's name is Belle Wilson, named after her. But it's kind of a neat play on all that.
Okay, because it was Belle and another gal that were the madams here back in the day.
Her name was Belle Wilson. Belle Wilson was her name. I don't know about
There's another story. People always ask if it's haunted. This is one story. When we found that arrest record over there, there was a delivery driver that had come in for years, and he'd done a ghost hunt here. And he said he got one of those recordings, and it said, "I want drugs." And then it gave a name, and it was Elizabeth. And he told me this. The guy would talk my ear off every week, and I was like trying to get out of here during the day. I'm like, okay, all right, yeah, sure. Years later, I'm reading this book, and they're talking about Belle Wilson. Then they list the tenants that were the prostitutes that were here. And when I read one name, I shut the book and ran out as fast as I could. It said Lizzie. I was like, nope, I'm out. Closed the book, locked the doors, I was gone. But it was kind of a interesting string of events that led to that. And so I've never seen anything, but people always ask that question, so I thought maybe we'd address it about the haunting, because it's an old building.
Okay, that's a very good question. You ever see or hear anything weird?
I see and hear lots of weird things. But
that wasn't. I teed that one up, didn't I?
But I haven't seen anything like that. But a lot of people have, and beyond that, like everyone's got a story about this place, and if they got a connection to this place, that's their connection, and it's as true and as right as anyone else's.
Talk about your live music. That's a big deal. You've got a nice music space in the back. You've had everything from burlesque shows here to all sorts of live music, and sometimes you do the live music at a really nice hour where you can still come in and listen and get home at a reasonable time, right?
Yeah, we for a while we did 6:30 to 8:30. It was early shows. We've kind of moved back to pushing it back a little later now. Through years, I think it was after COVID, we kind of realized that, it's a business, over anything else. It's like we're here to make money. It's like, okay, we've got to stretch our dinner crowd out a little longer because people are just coming here to eat. They're not coming to see the band. And so we kind of figured out a time. So now we're starting like 8:30 now. It's still not super late, but yeah, we had to change that up a little bit so people could come and enjoy our food. It's a great problem to have, but we kind of had to manage the time a little bit.
Okay.
And we still will. We still do some early shows, just more periodically, and a lot like acoustic, a lot lighter, something we know will fill the room and
not drive away,
and not drive away,
right.
with the noise. So.
Well, I mean, that is kind of a nice thing to be able to get in and see somebody you enjoy, and then get out before it gets really crowded and busy. You just don't want to be out as late. But I know that there are a lot of really talented artists in the Ozarks, tons of them. And I would imagine you have no trouble filling that stage up there.
Yeah, I mean, Eric kind of handles a lot of the booking historically, so he sees the emails. But yeah, once you get on a few, booking agents, radars, and then other, then you have people contacting you a lot. So yeah, I know, especially in the early years when we had the big paper calendar, and it was a lot of, a lot of time and a lot of moving pieces for sure. So it's a little easier these days. We did music every night of the week, 3 or 4 bands or more every night of the week. I mean, we were really getting them in and out, so we're able to sort of pick and choose a little more these days, and kind of do what we want, let the food and drink be its thing as well. So.
Well, and that's one thing. Sometimes you have to kind of give up one to get the other. You might go to a place and the food's really good and the music might be good, or the music is great, but let's eat somewhere else. We're not going to go. This gives you the whole enchilada, if you will. It's just, I think you deliver on all fronts.
Yeah. One of the biggest parts of this was live music. For years, like Bill Monroe played here.
Wow,
and,
really?
Yeah. Taj Mahal, Coco Taylor, Willie Dixon, who maybe a lot of people don't know, but he was in, that's not Chess Records. Well, he's the guy the first bass player to go boom, 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 boom. That was the original guy, and he played here. We have some writers and stuff that are waiting to get some framing and stuff. But when in the late 70s, early 80s, there was a lot of blues acts that went through. They were world renowned.
Bruce Rader was the guy who owned it from 78 through the mid 90s, and he came back from Vietnam, opened it, had a connection in Chicago with his Alligator Records company, and so he was bringing just all these people through, and it was sort of that time where the Ozark Mountain Daredevils were kind of coming up, and so that's what actually spawned sort of the idea for the early shows, was to sort of get that crowd back in here that didn't necessarily want to come out at 10 anymore, so the list of people that have been through here is Impressive for sure. The acts that he booked here back in the day, and they would do 2 nights. So Coco Taylor did Friday and Saturday all by herself, 3 hours plus. And so it's just you don't really see that very much anymore at all.
That gave me chills. Coco Taylor, wow. Bill Monroe, too, which I'm not a country music person particularly, but still, that's darn impressive.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Bruce Rader gets a lot of the credit for building the reputation that most people know Lindbergh's as these days. So, but after he shut down, this place wore a lot of different hats. A lot of people tried a lot of different things with it, and I think it kind of held out. I think it wanted to be what it was, that whole time. And so I think we've tried to capture a little bit of that, hold on to it, respect it, and keep the history alive.
Anything new coming up for Lindbergh's? Anything on the horizon that I love that you added the patio. Yeah. You're looking at each other and you're smiling. You've got plans. Well, you can tell me.
We're always thinking about things, but and menu rewrites and tweaking are they're always on that, and we're always looking for the next opportunity that makes sense for everyone. So
yeah, we were talking the other day about maybe messing with our menu again and coming up with some new items. We've been making these for a while. We want to keep the ones that are known for. Green tomatoes we'll probably always have, but we're thinking about maybe getting in there and messing with it a little bit, because that's what we like to do.
So stay tuned.
Yeah.
Stay tuned. All right. Well, you guys do a wonderful job here at Lindbergh's. You are on Commercial Street. You're all over social media. Don't miss it when they post. What day do you usually post what you're going to do on Sunday?
Usually on Fridays at some point, depending on how our day's going. I'm trying to get it done before we open, but sometimes it's problematic. But usually on Friday at some point. So by Saturday, you'll see it for sure.
And it's such a heartbreaker when you see it after the fact. I mean, it's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I missed that.
Like and subscribe.
Oh, I do. I just don't see everything. Do you know what you're going to have for New Year's since we're coming into the new year? Have you figured your menu out yet?
Since it's so close to our other brunch, we're probably not going to highlight a special. It's going to be black-eyed peas, something to do with that. It's New Year's Day. Then we're going to run our full menu and let people enjoy that. But it'll probably be less spectacular than normal as far as the special goes. Let the menu speak for itself that day and do something with black-eyed peas for sure, though.
Okay. That's what we used to. We always still do the black-eyed peas, the hog jaw, as my dad called it, some good cornbread and some collards, and I think to myself, why don't we have this more often? Yeah. Why do we save this for New Year's Day? Because it's one of my favorite meals of the year. Oh. And besides, it's New Year's Day. People just want a bite to eat. They don't overthink it. People are going to be recovering a little bit, I'm sure. I can't thank you guys enough.
Thank you.
Eric Weiler and Ryan Dock here at Lindbergh's. Keep up the great work, you guys. And if you do come for Sunday brunch, have the Bloody Mary. Thanks, guys.
Thanks. Thank you, Joy. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for your time.
Be sure to go to AroundTheOzarks.com to sign up for our daily newsletter, where you can get every episode of Savor the Ozarks, plus all our other podcasts, events, and contests straight to your inbox. And what are your favorite dishes in the 417? You have any restaurants you'd like me to visit? Email me at joy@AroundTheOzarks.com.